Okay. Welcome to tonight's Tanya class. We are studying Shar, HaYichud, VaHaemunah, the second section in Tanya. We're studying Perek Yud, chapter 10. The name of the section is called Shar, the gate, the entryway of Yichud, the oneness, VaHaemunah, and faith into the oneness of God. So in other words, this section of Tanya deals with the deepest Kabbalistic insights of Yichud, which is extremely important because we say it every single day in prayer services, and we have an obligation to say Shema Yisrael, Hear Israel, most important verse, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad is one. Now, Echad over there doesn't mean one. For example, you have one table and there's other tables for sale, one chair and there are other chairs, one person and there are other people. Echad means Yachid Miухad. It's the only existence that exists. So that a table is God, a chair is God, excuse me, people, everything is God. And if you're able to, obviously, and that's what we're studying in these chapters, you're able to see beyond the veneer, you'll see it's really all part of one. Now what happens is when you're part of that one big one, when you connect all the dots, what do you have? You have real peace. Because otherwise it's in pieces. Multiple dots, right, multiple things, is not peaceful. So the goal in life is to bring back the peace, which is its natural state. So when you're going into the oneness, you're not creating a oneness. You're revealing its natural state. So this section of Tanya, the second, deals with Shar, HaYichud, the oneness, which is a deep concept, and every week we get into another deep aspect of it. VaHaemunah and the faith. Now, the reason why it's called Shar, HaYichud, VaHaemunah, because in last week, chapter 9, the Alter Rebbe explained that this idea that everything is part of the oneness of God, it's all one, not part, it's not even part, everything is one. The Alter Rebbe finishes off the last week's chapter 9, and says, guess what? Intellect, which is our biggest gift that we have, that God gave us, cannot comprehend it. And in order really to, I'm not going to use the word understand it, because again, it's an intellectual term, but in order to see it, experience it, relate to it, we cannot use intellect, because again, even though intellect is great, we're not going to be able to get it. The only way we'll be able to get it, see it, feel it, relate to it, is with emunah, faith. And that was the ending of last week's chapter. That means, if you say to someone, what's this oneness? See, whatever you explain to the person, you'll only get so far, and at some point you're going to say, listen, I can't explain it anymore. You're either going to have faith, or you'll never appreciate it, you'll never get it. And unfortunately, a lot of people, and I've experienced this through my years of teaching, people that are not willing to let go and accept the fact that intellect is limited, they're never able to grow. Really grow, exponentially grow. Because if everything has to pass your intellect test, and let's even say you get 100 on all the tests, but guess what? You're only in the tier of intellect. So it's like somebody going to school and never leaving 8th grade. They'll do very well for the next 10 years. But guess what? They never went to 9th grade and 10th grade and so on and so forth. So intellect will only take you so far. And that's what Alter Rebbe said last week. You want to appreciate oneness? You got to graduate. You got to graduate out of intellect into the world of faith. And in the world of faith, oh my gosh, it's all one. It's a whole different level of relating, experiencing, seeing. Again, it's a whole different tool of communicating and feeling what the oneness is. And that's why this section is called Shar HaYichud VaHaemunah, because ultimately the way to appreciate and to connect and to see and feel the oneness, the tool is emunah. So Shar HaYichud is telling you the goal is Yichud, to get it, the oneness, and the tool is emunah. And that's what the Alter Rebbe finished off last week. Now, so in theory, this section should be over. But the Alter Rebbe knows that we have a brain. And our brain tells us, I want to try to understand it. And the truth is, that's because that's our strong suit, because that's a tool and a gift that we have that we feel like we can relate to more, we have more control over, we feel more safe with intellect because it's a process. 1 + 1 is 2. Okay, I get it, I understand. And so the Alter Rebbe tells you last week, guess what? Faith. And that's the truth. That is the truth. But this week he says, hold on a second. I know that some people aren't ready to make the jump. I mean, I'm obviously putting words in his mouth, but he's basically saying is, I know that people aren't ready to make the jump, and if I don't give them like a little window of an ability, of a tool, that with their intellect, they can see and experience and understand the idea of oneness of God, I'm going to miss a certain level of people that are not willing to take the jump. Now, and that doesn't mean always, sometimes you can take the jump, guess what I believe? And then your faith gets shaken based on things that happen in your life. So what do you fall back to? Your strong suit of intellect. But guess what? Now you're not going to connect to the oneness. And if you're not connecting to the oneness, you're missing out a whole area of growth and connection to God. So Alter Rebbe comes back in this chapter, not that he's going back on what he said before. The Alter Rebbe agrees and is consistent that the way to ultimately appreciate and connect to the oneness, and the oneness will give you the biggest gifts of peace, right, happiness, joy, clarity, and so on and so forth, love, or all the greatest qualities will come through faith. But here he says, guess what? Okay, for the days that you're not ready to take that big dive into faith, or for some reason you just want to use your brain again, so the Alter Rebbe, I'm going to give you a glimpse into the oneness of God using intellect. Now, we're not digressing. Remember, it's clear, we're not digressing. The goal is, you want oneness? Faith. And that's pure, and that's like the highest level. But we're saying for the days that you're not holding there, because we're not, listen, you're not always operating in the highest level, but and it's not about bad and good, but the days that you're not ready to let go, you want to hold on, right? You want to be cuddled, right? By God, right? You want to use your strong suit, your safety suit of intellect. So Alter says, fine, I'm going to go ahead this week and give you a glimpse into the oneness of God. So that's this chapter. Chapter 10 is the Alter going back and telling you, I'm going to give you a glimpse to the oneness of God.
A window. A
window that you can use your intellect. Now, obviously, because it's a deep concept, you can't just go ahead and spell it out. Anytime you want to teach something simple, okay, this is what it is, right? So you don't need it, but when you try and teach something deep, and as we know, the oneness is deep, so the Alter Rebbe gives a mashal, an analogy. Analogy, what you do is, you take something else that we could relate to, and we say, okay, what we're talking about is the same idea conceptually, and let's see, behind the scenes, and let's see if that helps you understand this idea. So the idea we're trying to comprehend, and then we'll give the mashal, the idea we're trying to comprehend is that we know God is infinite. God's infinite. Now if God is infinite, that's like, wow. Now, not only is God infinite, everything is God. Everything is God. But the question is, on one hand we're saying God is infinite, everything is God, so there shouldn't be tables, chairs, people, things, and more specifically, we know God used to create the world, he used the mechanism of the 10 Sefirot, exactly. Yeah. Now, the Sefirot God used to create the world. For example, Ratzon, if you don't count Das, Chachma. And there's verses in the Torah where it says God, through Chachma, created certain things. Bina, Das, Chesed is a flow of energy. Gvura is obviously creating limitations and boundaries and so on and so forth. Tiferes, compassion, Netzach, Hod, Yesod, Malchut, all the 10 Sefirot that God used. So on one hand we're saying is God's infinite. And on the other hand we're spelling God out in all these Sefirot. So is it really all one? So if it's all one, what's the idea of the Sefirot? And if you have all these different Sefirot, so where's the oneness? I mean, for example, and here I think the analogy is perfect. Do you want your cake or do you want to eat it? So if you have a whole cake and no one cuts it, guess what? You have a cake. What happens if everyone here takes a slice? You don't have a cake anymore. You have a part of a cake, because some of it is gone. It's not gone, it's in people's stomachs. right? That's where it is. So it's not really gone. So if you think about it, is the cake gone? No, it's just dispersed. So is the cake really whole? It depends. On some level, it's whole because it exists here, exists here. The cake technically is whole. But when you look at the cake, guess what? It's missing. It's the same idea. The Sefirot, if they are individual Sefirot, then where's the oneness? And if it's one, how do you get Sefirot?
Yeah.
Cake or eat it, right? One, no Sefirot.
It doesn't make sense.
Sefirot, does it make sense? It doesn't make sense. No. Sefirot, where's the oneness? Now, so the Alter Rebbe said last week, faith. I got it. Wonderful. But now he's saying I'm going to give you a glimpse into the oneness that you couldn't relate to it. So he said I'm going to give you an analogy. An important analogy because it's used a lot in mysticism. It's this concept, this analogy is used a lot. So we're going to go through it, and we'll see let's talk about the analogy, and then we'll make a marriage. We'll make a shidduch between the analogy and what we're saying. Okay. Take for example, you guys take a trip with me. Everyone ready to go for a trip? Put on your seatbelts, right? We're going to take now a parachute, or with the oneness, we're just going to go straight up to the sun. However we go. Whether you want to envision you need a parachute, you want to go straight up. So you think about it. If you're using intellect, well, we need a parachute, that's how you go up to high places. But if you're using oneness, hey, we're just going to be there, right? So pick your choice how you want to travel. We're going to take now a journey to what? I'm going to say the Hebrew, and then we'll translate. We're going to take a journey to something which is called Shemesh. Shemesh in English means the sun. So we're taking a journey up to the Shemesh. Wow. It's hot. I know it's hot, right? Because we're by the sun, probably burning, but we're at the Shemesh. The Shemesh, the sun that's up there, is a ball of, again, our terminology, a ball of fire, a ball of beyond fire, right? Because
heat.
Intense, beyond intense, because if you looked at it, you would burn. Now, so you have the Shemesh. Where's the Shemesh? Now the Shemesh, besides it being a Shemesh, now we're up now by the Shemesh, we're standing right here. So when we look at the Shemesh, what do we see? We see the sun. But besides it being the sun, is there light in the sun? Is there a ray in the sun? A ray of light in the sun?
Yeah.
Yes or no?
Yes.
You're saying yes, you're saying no. So hold on a second. Let's put it on the shelf. We're going to take it. Don't get dizzy on me here. We're going to take a journey back to Earth. Make believe it was now. Okay, now it's dark, but it's getting dark. But make believe it's the middle of the day. We live in Florida, so the sun is always shining. Thank God. Let's say it's 12 o'clock in the afternoon, and we're sitting outside. What do you have outside?
Shemesh.
Huh?
Shemesh.
The Shemesh is outside?
Light.
No, the Shemesh is up there. So what do you have down here?
The ray of light.
The ray of light that comes from the Shemesh. 1 second. So you don't have the Shemesh, you have the ray of light. Okay, we're going to do this a few times. So down here you have the ray of light that comes from the Shemesh. Take a journey back up, you see the Shemesh. And I say, point to me the ray of light.
Can't.
Rabbi, you got the Shemesh. What ray of light?
It's everywhere.
No, I said point. You can't even point it because the Shemesh is so powerful, there's no ray of light. But then again, we go back down, there's a ray of light. Whoa, explain this to me. Up by the Shemesh, it's the Shemesh. Down in this world, it's the ray of light. Is it the Shemesh or is it the ray of light? Now, so does the ray of light come from somewhere else, not from the Shemesh? Maybe it comes from the earth. We know it doesn't. How can you prove it? Very simple. Because if you put a plank of wood on top of you, there's no light coming from the earth. Versus on top of the plank of wood, if you're able to climb up, you'll see the ray there. And if you follow it back, you see it's coming from the Shemesh. So the ray is coming from the sun, from the Shemesh, from the sun. Here we see the ray. Up there, when we took our jet up there, or we just went up there, right? All we saw was the Shemesh. So the question is the ray of light exist in the Shemesh or not? Does it exist or it doesn't exist? You're saying it doesn't exist. So how does it exist down here? If it doesn't exist there, how does it exist down here? It's like you have a bottle of soda, right? Or any drink, a gallon, right? A gallon of water. Now you pour it into a cup. Now you have 8 ounces of water. So the 8 ounces of water, did they always exist in the cup? No, it came from there.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, it's a different analogy because over there, it's once you pour it out, it's missing from the source. But the point is, it came from somewhere to get here. The ray comes from somewhere.
From God.
So if it comes from the sun, obviously it has to be in the sun. But on the other hand, we don't see it in the sun.
So it leaves the sun.
So in the sun, does it exist or not? And what's the answer? It does exist. Okay, one second. So obviously, you must say it does exist, because how would it exist down here if it's coming from there, right?
But
So
it's obvious.
one second. No, hold on. It's not so obvious. Hold on. So it comes from the sun. The ray comes from the sun. You got it?
Yeah.
Why? Again, why does it come from the sun? Because it's here. We see it coming from there, so we know it comes from there. So we know it comes from there. So I say, now show it to me.
Yeah.
I give you a free ride to the Shemesh. Please show it to me. And the answer is, you can't show it to me.
No.
Why?
Maybe it just creates it.
Why? Because when the ray is at the Shemesh, because the Shemesh is so strong, it's totally like non-existent. Non-existent. I'll give you a simple example, but I don't want to get into it now. But if you have a controlling employer, the employee is not going to grow. The employee is not going to be creative. When could the employee be creative? If the employer takes a standoffish approach. Why? Because if it's too dominant, another force can't exist. So in other words, the ray, as it goes away from its source, it flourishes. Right?
What about the analogy of a wave in the ocean? Is the wave part?
Fine, so that's a good analogy, but let's leave it alone, because I want people to get this analogy first. That's another analogy which is used. It's used. But let's say focus on this analogy. I want you to grab this one, because it's an important analogy. But again, that's a good analogy, and we can use it maybe soon. But let's stay focused there. No, let's deal with this one. So again, the ray in the sun, it exists, but it's totally nullified, because the sun is so powerful. So again, let's make it clear we understand this. So there's the ray that exists in this world, comes from the sun, and it's in the sun, but it has zero, not 0.5%, it has zero presence and identity of its own, because the sun is so powerful. You got it? Now, so hold on. In Kabbalistic terminology, you know what that's called? Bitul b'metziut. His whole existence is totally gone. Doesn't exist. It goes away from the sun. As it goes away, guess what? It becomes more of a independent guy.
Sure.
Right?
So it develops its own attributes as it leaves the sun?
Well, it always existed. It becomes more revealed. It becomes more expressive.
So it has more size.
Yes,
to it.
100%.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yes.
No presence.
Yes, 100%. They say you give a bird, you let the bird fly, and all of a sudden the wings come out, right? You keep it locked up; it's not going anywhere. Okay, so this is so far one part of the analogy. So again, and I want to make sure we all got this, because it's going to help us to understand the Sefirot. The sun is extremely powerful. The ray comes from the sun, and the ray exists in the sun on some level. But because the sun is so powerful, it's gone. There's no ray. As it goes away, it becomes an independent thing. Now, so let's take it a step further. So the ray in the sun, on one hand, doesn't exist. You can't see it, and the Shemesh is so powerful that it doesn't exist. Nevertheless, it exists in this world. It's strange, right?
Like
It's strange.
Us and God.
It's strange, but that's the reality. Now, so
It's a paradox.
the question, it is a paradox, right? But the question is, how could it exist? How could it exist? One second, we're going to go a step further. We're going a step further. You need to hold on. We got this so far straight. So how come it does exist? How come the ray does exist? If it in the Shemesh it's totally nullified, what allowed it also when it came out, start to breathe? Why wouldn't it still be nullified from the Shemesh back home? So it has those mental memories, right? Why would it all of a sudden open up? Why would it allow itself to flourish? Why? And this is where you need, thank God, a Torah and God. And that is because God said to the Son, you're going to be, besides the fact that you're a son, which is extremely powerful, you're going to be a Ma'or. Now, a Shemesh and a Ma'or, even though we're talking about the same thing, it's two different worlds. A Shemesh is the sun. It's this powerful, intense heat. But now God says to the Shemesh, guess what? You are going to become a Ma'or. So even though you're a Shemesh, but your purpose of being who you are is that you should give off light. He didn't go off light yet. In other words, God empowered the Shemesh. Guess what? You're going to have to become a Ma'or. You're going to have to become a source of light. So it's like that was like a shakedown. God's saying, I know you're intense. I know that you're like, whoa, and that's your job. But I want you to adapt a personality that you should be a source of light. In other words, like this. If somebody's a extremely strong personality, and let's say a boss in a company, guess what? You're not going to have relationships with employees. It's going to be too frightening. But what happens when you realize, guess what? Even though I'm creative and powerful and all-knowing, whatever people think in their heads, right? But you have to also be effective. You have to be a mentor to people. So you have to stop in your mind knowing, I need to be a source of inspiration to the people.
Yes.
So God empowered the Son and said, I want you to be a Ma'or. I want you to be a source of light. Now, that's a start. The mere fact that the Shemesh heard the command from God, I got to be a source of light, guess what? The heat dropped a little bit. He's not a light yet. You don't see the light yet, but you do see someone, or in this case, the Son, has the power to give off light. Now, once you have the power to give off light, then God says, VaHaemunah. It's not enough that you're the source to give off light. Don't stop me there, but I want you to continue and actually give off light. It's almost like there's three parts to the process. There's the Shemesh. Then God commanding the Shemesh, I want you to be a source of light. So you got to loosen up a little bit. Nothing happened yet, but just loosen up. Know that you're not there for just to be so hot. You're there that you should be able to be a source of light. And then God says, guess what? I want to see light. And once God said, I want it to be light, now the source of light feeds the light that God wants it to be.
Gives us the rays.
Gives us the rays, exactly. Now, so now, in the source, now, so again, again, remember 3 levels. In the Shemesh itself, could exist? Could light exist? No. Because it's Shemesh.
Too much.
It's way too much. It's over the top. Can't exist.
It's too intense.
Now, when there's a Ma'or, even though it's powerful, but God says, guess what? I need you to, in your mind, know, you got to loosen up. You have to be a source of light. So over there, is there possible to be light? It's possible. Not yet, but it's possible. It's possible. And then comes out light that's beneficial, useful, and it's not going to burn us, and we can benefit from so on and so forth. Now, so we got 3 levels. Sun, just the sun. The source of light, which is in the sun, it's possibility to have the light, and then you have the light itself. We got that analogy? The Alter Rebbe said, I'm going to use that mashal to explain to you the way the Sefirot operate. Okay. And the Alter Rebbe says like this. God, the infinite God, is infinite. In the infinite God, that's one, everything is God, is there room for any existence, any sphere, anything? Nothing. Nothing. 0. But then God said, I'm going to have for me the opportunity to create a world. And how am I going to do that? By creating the Sefirot. So over there was also, in the first part, God, the infinite God, is there room for Sefirot? No, it's all one. It's all one. In where God already says, okay, I'm ready to create the world, So over there's the infinite God, but there's room for Sefirot. And then you have the actual Sefirot. Now, let's go back for a minute to the analogy. In the Shemesh itself, is there light? No, there's no light. It's there, it doesn't exist, because it's too powerful.
It's excited.
When the Shemesh has a command to be a Maor, so now there's the Shemesh, there has to be light, but the light is one with it.
Okay.
There has to be light, but it's one. You can't tell the difference. It's all one. But it's one of technically two pieces, but it becomes miyuchad, it becomes one. When you have then you have the light. The same thing with the Sefirot. In its source, the infinite, there's no Sefirot. But then you have, in the source where the Sefirot come from, with its potential for Sefirot, over there, the Sefirot are one with God. And then you have, in this world, where you have real Sefirot, Ratzon, Chachma, Bina, all the Sefirot. Now,
I'm confused a little, Rabbi.
Yes.
He's saying there's two worlds now. There's a conventional world.
well, there's four worlds. There's Atzilut, there's
No,
Bria,
but I mean,
Yetzirah, Asiyah.
what I'm trying to understand.
Right.
The two worlds that you're at now. The conventional world where the Sefirot exist, and the unconventional world, or the ultimate world where they don't exist.
Okay, so I'm happy you brought that. Let me clarify. Good, I'm happy you brought that up. Again, there's the infinite God. Over there, it's just everything doesn't exist. It's only one. The first world that God created is called what? Atzilut. In the world of Atzilut, let's use that as a name, so we'll have something to identify. In the world of Atzilut, the Sefirot exist, but they're totally one with the God.
Okay.
They're 100% Yachad and Miuchad. It's all one. You almost can't see the difference between the infinite and the individual Sefirot. That's the world of Atzilut. Once the light descends down, or the Sefirot descend down to the world of Bria, Yetzirah, Asiyah, then they start becoming its own identity. They create. Then you can say, oh, this is Chachma, this is Bina, this is Das, and so on and so forth.
Becomes more conventional.
As we're going away from the sun. Just like in the analogy, we're going away from the sun. So, in other words, what the Alter brings out that you can see from this analogy is that ultimately, is God one? Sure, God's one. Do Sefirot really exist? No. But that's in the higher world of Atzilut. Do Sefirot exist in these worlds? Yes. But do they really exist? No. The reason why they exist is because God's concealed. So, in other words, we finite human beings that call this a table, we're not holding in that level. We're saying it's all God, right? Maybe some present company excluded, okay? But we still call this a table and we call this a chair. We say there's something which is called Chachma, and there's Bina, and there's Das, and there's Chesed, all the Sefirot that we name. Because we see the pieces of cake. We don't see the whole cake. We see, I want that piece, right? Why can't you have the whole thing? Because we want pieces, right? Because we're finite. We're finite. So for us, it's pieces. So, but the truth is, do pieces really exist? Here, let's use different terminology. From the view from above, it's all one.
Right.
It's all one. There's no this Sefira, that Sefira, this plate. There's nothing. It's all one. But as it leaves the world of the infinite, and there's a step down of the Tzimtzum as we discussed, and you have starting to have real worlds, which is basically real concealment. Now you have an identity of Sefirot. Now, the question is, how come the Sefirot actually got watered? How come and how do they actually get watered down? So the Alter Rebbe explains in this chapter, which is really, really fascinating, and it's an important concept, and that's something which is called Hiskalalut Hamidot, where basically every midah is intertwined. In other words, like this. In the world of Atzilut, like for example, here, in the world of Atzilut, if you're dealing with Chesed, it's pure Chesed. If you're dealing with Gvura, it's pure Gvura. And every one of the Sefirot, it's pure, 100% pure. It's pure because it's connected to the infinite God, and over there everything is pure. As you create Tzimtzumim, the world becomes impure. Nothing is 100%. So, for example, the Alter Rebbe says, when God created the world, so He created the world in 7 days. every single day that God created the world, why 7 days? Because every single one of the days of creation resembled one of the Sefirot that was the dominant force that day. So for example, the first day when God created the world, which Sefira did he use?
Light.
He created light, but which Sefira did he use?
Oh.
Chesed. What is the essence of Chesed? What's the essence of Chesed? Giving. Exactly. Giving. Love. Giving. Think of what God did in the first day. He's giving. Right? He's giving. So the first day was all about Chesed giving. But in the Chesed that existed in the first day, even again, the dominant Sefira of the first day was what? Chesed. But nevertheless, because we're down in the materialistic world, it couldn't just be pure Chesed. Because it was just pure Chesed. You know what happened? We were drowned in God's kindness. So we would. It would be too much for us to handle. We say, oh, stop, enough, right?
I'd love to drown in it.
Okay, your soul would, right? Your body, I don't know. But that's fine. So, but in the first day of creation, even though the dominant force was Chesed, guess what? There was Gevurah there a little bit, right? Tiferes, Netzach, Hod, Yisod, Malchut. So what happens is, not only is it a Sefira, but it's not even a pure Sefira. What happened in the second day of creation? In the second day of creation, what did God create in the second day? Always intriguing. What did he create in the second day? Huh?
Divided
Say that word again. Use it. Say it again.
divided.
Divided. What did God create in the second day? No, you're jumping now. One word at a time. God divided. That's a nice creation.
You mean water and land?
No, you're already jumping.
Okay.
What did God... Okay, the first day, God created light. Thank you. I have light. The second day, what did God do? Divided. Think about this for a moment. Raw sense of God divided. What does that mean, he divided? I wanted the whole cake. What do you mean he divided? He gave me only half? Right? I wanted a car. He gave me half of a car? Right? A house. Took away half my house? What does divided mean? And that's what divided means. God divided. Why is that? Because what's the dominant force in the second day? Gevurah. What is Gevurah all about? Boundaries, limitations, restraint, etc. So the dominant force in the second day is Gevurah. Now, if it was only Gevurah, what would he be dividing? Nothing. He's not giving you anything. But you see, even in the dividing was actually for our benefit. Because it was too strong, so you have to divide. This is by day, and this is by night, and this is here, and this is there. I mean, you have to create some...
Limitation.
So, right. So, in other words, was it really Gevurah? No, because if it was real Gevurah, it would be go to sleep at 9 o'clock, lights out, right? But it was, no, you're going to have lights, but we're going to close the light at a certain time. It's not real Gevurah. Real Gevurah would be real discipline. It is Gevurah, but again, you see the way all the Sefirot are tied one with the other. In other words, so what happens is, as the Sefirot are connected one with the other, do you experience the oneness? Or even in the day that Chesed is supposed to be the dominant force, guess what? Do you experience the oneness of Chesed? No, you experience all these other Sefirot there.
But yeah.
In the second day, right? And so on and so forth. So what happens every single day, you have a dominant Sefira, you have all the other ones.
Continues to divide.
What?
Continues to divide.
Continues to water it down.
Yeah.
Continues to water it down, continues to mix. So therefore, if I say, okay, let's go have, let's do Chesed, right? Let's go out and do something. Can we just do it forever? We'd love to. We can't. We're limited. So are we really experiencing even one sphere in a pure way? No. Every sphere is connected one with the other. Why? Because in this physical world that we're living in, we are limited, and therefore we have Sefirot. Not only we have Sefirot, we have Sefirot that are so mixed up one with the other, and therefore, to us, this is a Sefira, and this is this Sefira, and this is not that Sefira, and this is mixed with this, and so on and so forth. So we have all these different things.
And we lost the oneness.
We lost the oneness from our perspective. Yeah. But from God's perspective, it's still one. It's still one. It's still one. In other words, and the Alter Rebbe finishes, he quotes in the Zohar, and he says like this: at the end of the day, there is, for example, there's tzedek. Right? What's tzedek? Tzedek is justice. Justice comes from Gvura. But then there's mishpat. Mishpat is more compassion. Comes from where? From rachamim. Now, these are all Sefirot. And it describes, obviously, the way that God put tzedek and mishpat in the world. Now, all the Sefirot, chesed, gvura, tiferes, tzedek, and din, and mishpat, everything, where does it all come from?
From God.
Everything comes from God. Just like the ray of light comes from the sun. Everything comes from God. But is that what God is? Limited to a Sefira?
No.
No, God's everything. God's everything. So, what the Alter is showing us in this chapter of Tanya, chapter 10, which is extremely crucial, is that even though, yes, you want to experience oneness, you have to take faith, but here he shows you clearly from a simple analogy of the Shemesh and the Ur and the Maor, that yes, everything comes from one, and really everything is part of the one. But as it goes away from its source, it creates its own identity, and what seems to be like different things, ultimately in the source, are they different? Are they really one? They're really one.
They really was.
They're really one. Exactly. So,
From God's perspective, there's only one.
it's only one. So here you see clearly, the Alter shows us, everything is really what? It's all one. And you see it clearly, it's all one. It's all coming from one place. What's confusing is because we see different things. But the fact that we see different things, and that's because we're human and we're limited, and we don't even have clarity, we have everything is mixed up, but if we're able to go back and saying, where does this all come from? It all comes from one. So if it comes from one, it really is one. And if you're able to say, okay, where does it come from? And it comes from one, so it really is one. So then what's the answer? It's all
There's only
one.
one.
And if it's all one, guess what? Life is great. And life is full of
joy,
peace, and happiness, and all the good things. So here you see clearly that you don't have to come on to, I mean, it's great to have the faith, but you can even rationally comprehend that ultimately everything comes from the one God and everything is really one.